Visionary Ventures. Okay, guys. Dieter, good evening.
Evening, sir.
How's it going on your side?
No complaints, no complaints, thanks.
Listen, good. There's already a bit of a holiday vibe in the air, hey? I was laughing today because there's a class scheduled for tomorrow evening. So I don't know if students going to attend that because tomorrow evening is a long weekend. Are you guys busy and working over the long weekend, or can you take a bit of a breather, Dieter? What does your
I
academic workload look like now?
I just basically now got my finance assignment figured out, and after all the amendments that needed to come through, we've now only got a picture of how things need to go. So wrapping up the entrepreneurship, hopefully then God willing over this weekend and then into finance. I'm just glad that we got a little bit of a reprieve with the applied accounting and finance hand-in date because there was about a month apart between when the entrepreneurship assignment was released against that one. So,
Yeah,
and then we had a week delay because there were a number of material errors there. So, a bit of a delay that side. So, we'll be working.
yeah, I see what you say. You're talking about the applied accounting and finance. That's due on Friday the 17th.
Yes, sir, that's the one.
Yeah, no, you guys have a lot of work, eh? And I must tell you, um, if you think it's busy now, second semester is rough when you guys start with your research project. But you will be able to handle it just well. Machidu, good evening. Alethea, good evening. It is tough, but I think it's going well, and you guys will fare well. You'll find your rhythm. All right. So this evening, I want to really make it a bit informal, guys. Like I said, there's a bit of like a holiday vibe in the air. So let's um enjoy this evening and talk a bit. So yes, ice. We did one ice. I think it was in session 5. Um, I might. I think we will be looking at ice again next week. Don't worry about ice. You're not going to miss ice. We will make sure that everyone has ample opportunity to get all the ice marks. We're going to look at PAS now. I haven't seen any updates on PAS. If you guys, Alicia, I'm going to ask you if you see a new PAS version that I drop, you just notify me as well. I know we can't send them around, but I will then get a hold of it. Sometimes you guys, sometimes it misses us. Um, but yeah, so there's ice. Of course, we will. I think next week ice. The PAS dates. We've got the first assignment due on April the 10th. Looking at PAS just now, which means I'll see you one more time before that. I want to really now stress the some points here, guys, in terms of your submissions. Um, yes, group names. We had Invictus, we had the Entrepreneurs, and then the Visionary Ventures, which is the name that I just got from Tabile. At this point, guys, we had 4 members in Invictus. We had 4 members in the Entrepreneurs. Tabile and Benjamin, you guys were in the final group. We spoke about Divakar and Menu um, uh, that we didn't see last time. We'll find out where those students are. Yes, Tabile, I see your hand. You're welcome to continue.
I just want to ask, since assignment 1 is due next week, I think, yes, on the 10th,
10th. Yes.
when are we going to have the national support session for this assessment?
A national support session.
Yes.
Uh, why would we need a national support session? Is there anything unclear in the assignment? Is there anything that's problematic in the assignment?
Oh, I thought for all assignments, we must go through the assessment with you as the lecturer. I'm just asking. I thought maybe for all assessment, that is a session that we need to have. I'm just.
No, I think it can differ from module to module. So if you look at the assessment, I think it's pretty straightforward. I want to talk about stuff looking at that, but yeah, we're not going to spend a session looking at the assessment. That's really not necessary, guys.
Okay.
It's really straightforward. What I do want to tell you is this. In the marking of things, as I see submissions coming in other modules, and remember, you guys are postgrads, that's why I treat you like postgrads. AI is really causing havoc, guys. I told you last time, the only thing we are doing here is purely about research, right? That's why, and I said last time, that's why we spend time with the librarian. That session that Michelle Coates gave us on how to access ourselves in, the library to get good data. That pointer from academic writing that I gave you, I really want you guys to go back to that, because that is really what it comes down to. I see there's an updated page. That's really what this comes down to, guys. The submissions that I see coming through in other modules, if there's AI contraventions, it is acted on strictly. So remember, there are two figures here. The first one is your similarity index. Now, we always had this sort of 25% ballpark, but guys, 25% is too high, especially for postgrads. I really want you guys to come in much lower than that. I want you to come in closer to 10% on your similarity index, please. That's important for me. Then you don't see your AI scores. That's something that we see in the background. And it is something that I want to really ask you guys. Don't play around with AI. Don't take that chance. Don't let AI make things unpleasant for you. Because the first thing that happens with AI is we don't mark your work, we don't publish your mark. It has to go in to the integrity officer for a whole investigation. So it's traumatic in a sense, because now you're waiting for your marks. You don't get your marks back. You're sitting in anticipation. What's going to happen? There's literally about 3 things that can happen, guys. The best outcome that you can hope for is that your adjudication outcome can come back and say, all right, it's fine. We're going to mark your work. That can happen. Or they can ask you to resubmit without penalties. That can also happen. What can also happen, folks, and I've seen a lot last year, is it can come back on a 50% cap. Yes, a 50% cap, or it can come back on a 0, and I've seen too many of those also. Don't think that you're going to slip through the cracks with AI. The systems are so good, it's going to catch you out. Then another thing, please listen up. Please put in an AI declaration. Yes, you guys are allowed to use Grammarly to do grammar editing. Some of you subscribe to a paid version of Grammarly, and then make a declaration. This is how you used it. If you use that, please tell us exactly how you used AI. Where did you use AI? If you said, listen, I used AI to help me think, to help me order my thoughts, guys, we want a declaration at the end of your submission, after your reference list. That AI declaration, where you tell us exactly how you used AI, the links you used with AI, what did you ask AI, what did AI, how exactly did you use AI? That all belongs there in an AI declaration. Guys, it's a must, it's compulsory. You must submit that AI declaration. And if you haven't used any AI, then of course you say, listen, I didn't use AI in any way, shape, or form. If you did use it, explain to us how you used it. Sorry, I'm just going to read Dieter's message here. My submitted two, maybe 3 of my assignments completed all semester 2 modules so that you can see my writing because I use very elevated English and it can look some type of way. May I do this, please? Some of my previous lecturers have noted my very intense use of academic writing and elevated English without being verbose. So what exactly are you asking me, Dieter? Just explain to me. Take the mic.
Hoping mail maybe 2, 3 of my former assignments, and just to sort of get a gauge of of my voice academically, because it might seem as if there could possibly be very elevated English, which might then look some type of way. And what I mean by that is it might look like there's a bit of LLM or artificial intelligence being involved, but it really is not.
Where it really is your own work. All right. So when those AI engines run through your work, are you then concerned that it will detect AI or something of that sort? Are you worried about a false positive detection, Dieter?
I think so, more that Manier might think that I might be using it more than it being a false positive from the AI checker itself, because it wouldn't, that should not, because
Yeah.
it's 100% human voice.
No, look. Yeah, no, that's no problem. And I mean, if you're talking about elevated English, if you are saying that you're using a high level of academic discourse, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing that we need to be worried about or check it. If it's your own work, it's your own work. And it's important, guys, while I'm on that point, it's important for me that you try to attain that high level of academic discourse. Yes, always. But it's more important to me that it's your own work. So don't go and write stuff, but you don't know the meaning of the word. Don't go to the thesaurus function on Word and see how you can change every second word to some high esoteric word that no one understands the meaning of. That's not good writing. It's good writing when you demonstrate to me that you understand what you are talking about, and that's more important for me to see. All right. So Dieter, yeah, I'm not concerned in any way about that. That's exactly what we expect of you as a postgrad. So the good language, the high level discourse is not funny, it's not irregular, it's exactly where you should perform. So don't be concerned. If the similarities are fine, if the AI detector is fine with you, then kudos to you if you display that mastery of elevated English. Nice, I'm looking forward. Okay. I must take away this thing. Then, folks, I'm penalizing students much more than I would like to for referencing style errors. And every time it happens, students come back and they say they can't believe it, they didn't see it. I can't take less than 5%. It's 5 and 10%. So commas, spaces, um, in-text referencing, um, brackets, italics. I spoke about this in my academic writing pointers, guys. We look at everything. Every one of those things are extremely important. There's a comma before the date in your reference list, right? You know that it's new. Um, there's no longer that ampersand, you know, the and sign on your keyboard. Um, it's no longer used. The and that sits on Shift 7. It's called ampersand. We don't use that. We have to write out the word and in all cases. The correct use of et al, folks. If you put et al in a reference list, I'm gonna be tempted to take away 10% because that's absolutely not that's not forgivable. I've had students say they battle, where's the reference list? Where do we find it? It's literally on our website, folks. If you battle to find it, contact a librarian, contact campus, but it sits on the library website. So it's there for all to see. All right. There's assignment 1. Kapile. Cover page, guys. A cover page. Always a cover page with everything on. Avoid color, avoid funny stuff. I spoke about it again in my pointers. I gave you that general guideline. Here's the referencing style deductions. And again, I did speak about this. If you go back and watch the session, when we talk about referencing style errors, it's not plagiarism. Plagiarism is something completely different. This is referencing style errors only. Take away 5 or 10% of your mark. Referencing style is one thing. Plagiarism offenses is something completely different. If we suspect plagiarism, that means that we don't mark your work. And your work gets referred to people also investigating that. And that can end badly for you guys. It can really end up in you, your academic career not going well. All right. Assignment instructions. It's very simple, guys. There's the word count. What do I think about word count? Stick to it. You have to learn to write word economically. So I'm literally not going to stop marking after if you cross 3,000 words with one word. I'm not going to stop marking there. Obviously, if it's merited, if it's warranted, if the assignment you submit is quality academic work. But guys, I cannot stress it enough that you have to learn to stick within those borders, right? You know by this time also that excludes your whole preamble, your whole reference list and appendices and so on, right? Here they tell you everything, guys. Then they say indicate word count on the cover of your assignment. It's there, it's pretty straightforward. We know that we have to put in a table of contents. So a detailed table of contents, guys, with numbering, with page numbers, with headings and subheadings. A table of contents doesn't need to fit on one page. It can go over several pages in a big document. So that's really, really important that you put out a good, sound table of contents and a reference list. Call it a reference list, please, nothing else. That is aligned with the institutional guideline. You don't use bullets. You put it alphabetically. Every entry is correct. A minimum of 8 credible sources. That excludes your prescribed material. Guys, that's a minimum. Nothing stops you from putting more sources in. Why can't you put 15 in or 20 for that matter in this submission? Why? Because the more in-text references you add, the more saturated your work is from an academic rigor perspective, right? So important. And this is really, I don't think there's anything here that that's not understandable. So everything is there. There's the sections, the mark allocation is there. Yes, look at the mark allocation, guys. The mark allocation sort of gives you an idea as well. And if there's different mark allocations, then obviously you're going to you're going to allocate more to a question that counts more marks, obviously, right? It's not about writing and waffling. You can write pages and pages and books full. It's about the quality of arguments that you formulate. Does it make sense? Do you address the issue? Do you address the so what issue? Do you integrate theory with practice? It's in my session. Do you reference in the correct context? In other words, contextual referencing. Are you referencing out of context, which is a form of plagiarism, or are you using scholars in the correct way? Infographic, we all know what that is. So that's easy. It's not easy. It's easy to understand, right? Guys, and I really want to tell you, when they ask you about specific theories, you go and look for those. But I'm opening the gate wide for you. You can go in whatever direction you want. You can pretty much say what you want. If you address it, if it's academically sound, if it's true, if it's rooted in sound academic sources, and you can motivate and substantiate what you write. That's how we roll in postgrad. Remember, I told you guys in the beginning um, that we don't. Um, you are in the fortunate position where we are not there to test your memory retention. If there's a question that says, discuss the role and impact of entrepreneurship in the South African economy, you guys did a class exercise like that. We had to do research. I think it was on social entrepreneurship. Remember that one? And you guys came back. So the research you do, the world is your oyster. All these questions are research based, and you have to put your answers down, integrating theory with the case, and motivate and substantiate what you are saying. Integrate, motivate, substantiate. Academic language, don't use first person ever. I've been over that as well. So there's really nothing here. There's nothing that I need to tell you more here. There's nothing here that's not understandable. Again, you guys are postgrads. There's a rubric. Can you see the language in the rubric? Gives you an idea. It gives you clues as to what we want. This is what we're going to use, guys. Here they say, look at this. There's a discussion of the 4P model. Now we say, all right, it's a minimal discussion, it's a basic discussion, it's a good discussion, or it's a very good discussion. And that's why your mark's going to fall in one of those blocks. If we say, listen, your discussion was basic, it's fine, it's adequate, it's satisfactory, you discussed it basically. That doesn't mean it was good. You could have gone into more depth, the quality of your arguments formulated, the quality of your integration and so on. So that's why we've got those ranges. You will see, and I've told you that you will definitely grow. It's an organic, I think, exponential growth curve for all of you, and you will grow. It's like doing the bicycle thing. Maybe I should say that now. When I give you feedback, I will definitely tell you what not to do. I will tell you don't use first person, don't put brackets on your dates, don't leave out your table of contents. Please give me line spacing. Please justify your text. I'll give you feedback on what not to do, and please listen and incorporate that. If your work comes back and you get a mark and you fall somewhere in the block that says it was satisfactory, it was adequate, then I'm going to tell you, listen, do what you do, because you are going to become better with writing. You are going to become better with research. You are going to become better in navigating your searches, navigating your way in an academic database, and your writing, all of you, will increase. If I tell you the quality will increase, if I tell you don't do A, B, and C, avoid this, and you keep on doing it in your subsequent submissions, then I rest my case, guys. I'm going to give you that feedback so that you can incorporate my feedback. So I'll tell you what not to do. I'll show you the things that you do right, but I can't tell you exactly how to become better. That's not so easy. It's like your bicycle. You got a bicycle when you were a toddler. You got on it, you fell, you bled. You got on it some more. You didn't ride your bike the first day you got it. You couldn't. And when you started, there was a lots of faults and there were lots of things. And your dad told you, just go on, just get back on, just get back on. And there was a time that came where you mastered your bicycle. And then there was a time that came where you could do it hands-free. Remember that? You could ride your bikes without holding hands. And then there was a time where some of you could wheelie the bike. Yes. And some of you could wheelie the bike no hands. That's a growth curve. It's different for all of us. What was the key ingredient in you mastering the bicycle at the end of the day? Was continue doing what you are doing. And that's how this works. The more you read academically, the more there's lots of exercises here. Guys, they are not compulsory. You can do it. You can do the activities. You can read. You can do stuff. The more you educate yourself, the more you immerse yourself as an academic, the steeper your growth curve is going to be. The 5-year seminal source is intense. It is the way it is. So that is unfortunately what we see. It's a very fast changing landscape. 2 years is already along. You know, things change. We're in such a fast changing landscape, Dieter, that 5-year benchmark is there. Again, I'm not going to be pedantic if it's a year or two over. Don't go and do blatant mistakes like using a 2009, a 2007 reference because you like what they said. If you want to use what's in that reference, guys, go and look for another source that says the same thing. I did discuss this in my brief as well. Don't compromise your academic credibility by using old sources. Don't do that. It's not going to work out well for you. Yes, Dieter, you are correct. There might be a seminal aspect to it where you want to go back. There might be an historic aspect that you want to go back and highlight something that's historically important, and then you do that. But using an old reference because you like it just for the sake is not good research. Then be careful of internet sources because they can be frowned upon. They can be considered dodgy. So I don't want to see you listing 10 sources and almost all of them are internet or online sources. That's not good. At least balance that with academic sources and then specifically journal articles, folks. That's where the real the real heavy lifting sits. That's where the real credibility sits with you using academic articles. Tabile, there's not much more that we need to say, that we need to discuss here. Look at this report structure. Here it says headings and subheadings and paragraphs. It tells you there must be a logical flow. There must be headings and subheadings. So in other words, I don't want to see one block of text. I want your writing under headings and subheadings. The more detailed, of course, it must be warranted. It must be rational. Don't add 20 subheadings under a single heading. That would be ridiculous. But if you want to break up an idea with 1 or 2 subheadings, by all means, do that, guys. And show me those subheadings in your table of contents. It must be logical. It must be coherent. There must be a flow. Now, limited use of direct quotations. The rubric is very detailed, folks. And you can see exactly where your mark lies. It's not an essay. And again, I did speak about that in my pointers. We are not getting the vibe of the essay that that we had when we were at school and we wrote essays about your holiday romance or the sea holiday you had. We didn't do that. We don't do that. We do more of an academic report with headings and subheadings. So it's not an essay where you jump in and you start. Remember, you want to navigate your reader. That's why they tell you that there's headings and subheadings. There's a conclusion, there's an introduction. Make it easy for your reader to navigate your work. Ali, are you sure it's counting up to 1 to 80? Well, that's 20, eh? Plus 20 is 40. Where does it 20%? Ali, no, it shouldn't be like that. Let's just make sure these things are checked and checked and checked and checked many times before they
Because if I look at section A is 30, section B is 30, and section C is 20.
Oh, I see. Looking at this here now, section A 30, 15, 15. 3. Okay, but listen, there's also introductions and so on, right? So you're sitting with a 5, then a 15. I'm very confident it's going to count up to 100 Ali.
Okay, because if the intro and conclusion is like 5 marks or 5 marks each, and there's still a difference.
There's
Anyway,
a
just something
report.
I picked
No,
up.
no, there's a report structure as well that
Oh,
counts
there,
10
okay.
marks.
Okay,
And
then
you see
that is
that.
yeah, so that's the difference. Okay, sure.
Exactly. Yeah, you won't somehow get these things are meticulously checked and checked and checked and checked. So that's your rubric. So it's not about the content only. It's those additional marks that you get or lose. I mean, that 10 marks for report structure, poor use of language. Guys, how you master language. You submit something to me, but you're writing in American English. I see the Z's. You're talking about emphasize and customize. We are a South African institution. Yes, and again, at risk of becoming repeating myself, I did mention that again in the session I had with you on academic writing. Please use South African English and grammar because we are a South African institution. And if Microsoft Word or Google Docs or whatever you use throws you back or defaults to some other language and grammar, please make sure that you make sure that your final document is in South African language and grammar. Make it neat, make it boring, make it clinical, avoid colors, avoid big font sizes and funny stuff. If you end up at the end of a page, you just go on. Everything just goes on and on and on and on from one page to another. If there's a heading that's right at the bottom of your page, I might move that to a new page. But if there's a heading and there's 1 or 2 lines of writing below that, that's fine. You just continue and you carry on. Guys, give me a readable paper. It must be spaced. And of course, it must be readable. They normally tell you guys that they want it in a 12-point Arial that is 1.5 space. Did they give you that brief in any of your other submissions? Font size and spacing? Yes? Hello, folks. Yes, they did. All right, so you know what the protocols are. All right. So we had a quick look. Tabile, are you happy? We don't need to go into any more depth because you guys are going to nail it. You're going to figure it out, which is expected. Thank you. All right. So, folks, let's look this evening then also at something I'm calling the anatomy of opportunity, the value proposition. So as entrepreneurs, let's think about how we take out money. Whenever we take out money, we want to exchange money for value. That's how it works. That's how you guys that are working also earn a salary, right? You have to add value and you are then remunerated for the value add you bring. Now the market works the same, eh? The market forces says that at a certain demand, at a certain price point, there's an exchange of money, of currency for value added. A strong economy, plain and simple, it means it's an economy where there's a relatively high or a relatively strong exchange of goods and services. No, goods or services, the main types of offerings in a business. All right. So the market, guys, rewards the value added. We exchange currency when we have value or perceived value even in what we did. Now, I want you guys, all of you, to think of, and don't share that just yet. Identify one business that you are maybe involved in, or it's owned by someone that you know well, or it's a business that you intend to start. You are looking at putting up a business and you've got plans in your head. And then in 3 sentences, I want you to put down the primary friction point. What's the main thing that this business solves for its customers? So think of that business, get a pen and a piece of paper, and give me 3 sentences where you say, all right, but what's that primary friction point? What's that thing that your business, that problem that your business makes to disappear? All right, you guys can start with that. Something that you are a bit more intimately acquainted with. So your own business, something you've involved with, or something on a sideline, or something you know well, or something that you intend in doing. Take your time and write down, if you can, 3 sentences that will describe how this business, what your business puts down to extract monetary value from the market in exchange for what. All right, guys, get busy with that. I'm going to give you a minute or 5 to put down those sentences. Not going away. I'm just going to put my mic off for a moment. I've got a bit of a frog in the throat. Take a few minutes. Take 3 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Looking at those 3 sentences for that specific business. Goods or services, doesn't matter. Any business. Anything that puts value down. Okay, folks. Just want to check my text here. All right, that's all fine. Yeah, so Dieter, don't have too many nightmares. Go and look around. You will find articles. Sometimes you have to dig around a bit, folks. Sometimes it really takes a bit of digging. Okay. I'm going to ask you now to go into groups. Now listen very carefully. We don't have everyone in class here. What I want you to do is this. Please take a look at this. Take a screenshot. I'll leave it up. We're going to go into groups now. I'm just going to make 2 groups. And now I want you to classify this business. Classify the business that you're talking about in terms of 3 categories. The first is it an efficiency-driven business? In other words, does it win by being cheaper, faster? There's an efficiency component. Is it an innovation-driven business venture? Is the success rooted in the fact that there's something unique, something very innovative that makes that business win? Or is it an experience-driven business where we say it's a brand, it's a relationship, it's something, there's a legacy associated with that brand. So categorize your business in one of these classes as a main driver? Is it efficiency that you're after? Is it innovation that puts the business ahead? Or is it about the experience, the legacy, the relationship? I want you guys then to talk about it in a more formal way so that we can get an academic handle on this, guys, to say, all right, look at my example here. We move from saying that my friend sells coffee to it's an efficiency driven model focusing on high turnover logistics. That might be the driving force of that particular business. What's the driving philosophy behind that particular business? I'm not going to make it 15 minutes. That's too long. 10 minutes is fine. So I want you guys, as it stands, I see we've lost Machidi, so I'll guide her again. Ali, you and Dieter just go into Invictus, the breakout group. Tabile, you and Benjamin go into the visionary, what did we say now? No, your group. The name isn't there, but it's the Visionary Ventures or something. You're going to see group 3 and breakout rooms. So remember, guys, we did this last time. I'm going to put a time on it, time cap of 10 minutes. And I want you to then discuss, each of you discuss your business and then come back. But now I want you to give me that label. Remember, we said, what's the business? But now what's the driver? How can we give language to the driving force of that business? All right. Breakout rooms, let me open them. We still have Invictus Room 1. The entrepreneurs, we don't have anyone from that group here now, but she just left us. And then Room 3, that's your room, Benjamin. That's your room, Tapele. It's Room 3. I'm going to open them and leave them open for 10 minutes. And then we reconvene, and then there's something I want to discuss subsequently. Right, the rooms are, I'm just setting my my time limit here, guys. I'm opening the rooms, and then you guys can pop into your rooms again. And I want you to discuss, so there's only 2 of you in each group as it is now. You can go in and discuss your rooms according to these drivers that I've shown you, and I'll see you in 10 minutes. All right, you guys can go. The rooms are open. You can voluntarily move to those rooms. Tabile, Benjamin, you guys move to room 3. It's not named yet, so it's just room 3. Yes. Right, Benjamin is out. Tabile, why are you still here? Yes. Join the
Remember,
room.
I still have the same problem I had last week.
Okay, so you guys maybe getting a WhatsApp call or something else, right?
Yes, let me just get hold of Benjamin through WhatsApp.
What's the problem again? Is it because you are working on a different device, Tabile?
I think it's because at the moment I'm using my phone.
Okay.
I don't have access to a laptop at the moment, so the phone is,
Okay.
yeah.
Tabila, I want you to go back and watch my pointers on academic writing session, please. And did this evening quick glance over help you a bit?
Yes, it did.
All right. Let you and Benjamin speak on WhatsApp. I'll see you guys in about 7-8 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And you are back. Ready. Peter, did you already complete the second semester modules for this qualification?
Yes, sir. I completed all of them. Yeah.
Did you do it last year?
I was actually contact in 2024 Pretoria campus.
Oh, really, really?
Yeah.
My home campus. And tell me, so you did Remy already, right?
I did Remy. It was actually quite nice. I was blessed to have a very good lecturer.
Was that Bobby?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So Remy, and then I had strategic with Bruce Carter, Captain Bruce Carter, and then I had my global business management with a Dr. Gashala Isop.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Gazala,
yeah,
Gazala.
Gazala Isop, yeah.
Fantastic. Right. Now I want you to tell me, let's start with you, Dieter. What was the business that you identified? What's the business that you spoke about?
I actually am currently in the process of launching this myself. I've developed a new field of study by bringing different aspects of different fields and bringing them together. I've named it, and I'm busy with the registering of the name as a trademark, Strategic Executive Judgment. And it is aimed at chief executives generally of more capital intensive infrastructure and physical goods move, whether that's resources or mining or whatever the case is, those types of things. So not in your technology growth thing, but a more established business. I focus on three things: elevating decision rigor and the credibility of those decisions by the chief exec to their board and to the rest of the C-suite. Then the second thing is to accelerate the decision velocity while sharpening the strategic clarity of those decisions. And then the third thing is improving the resilience of those set strategies against a wide range of futures. And I've done this by deploying a decision and foresight architecture end-to-end system that takes you from intel analysis that I draw from national intelligence. Those skills there, I take foresight and future studies from military strategy and sort of plug it in there and help them make decisions.
Are you in military? I hear you talk about Bruce and his tank capacity.
I was not in military or national intelligence, but I come from a private sector intelligence, risk intelligence background.
Okay, so it's in a consulting business. And which one of these drivers would you say is most fitted with your offering?
It would need to be innovation because, yeah, no, it's quite unique.
Fantastic. Nice to listen to you.
Yeah.
Annie,
Thank you.
what business did you pen down, and what's the main value add?
Yeah, okay, mine's definitely much shorter than it did. But okay, so I am very familiar with the business storage. They've come a long way. I mean, obviously I know two of the people that sort of started this. But for me, what stands out is obviously way over 20 odd years they kind of had this idea. And by then one didn't think, if you think of Cape Town, because they're Cape Town based, that it would stem so far, and you think, oh, there's so much space around. Where would people want to pay for space? It's like unnecessary. It's more like a want than a need. But if you look at now to where the business have grown, they've branched out not just in Cape Town or South Africa, but also sort of outside of Africa. And the three things that for me, what stands out is obviously people don't have the luxury of space anymore like they used to nowadays, because things are so much smaller. If you think of sort of adults entering the market, professionals and stuff, yeah. And secondly, I think it just meets the desire, the need to, people have things and they acquire things and they don't want to get rid of stuff. So yeah, I think it caters to a broad range, not just a high LSM. but anyone that is needing that. And I think
Exactly.
they are positioned in the right locations also, where people can afford different size storage units. But yeah, I mean, back then for me, it just seems like it's like a wasted idea. But if you think how much it's grown, for me, it's actually amazing. So I would place it in, I wouldn't, as much as it's efficient, I would say it's more the innovator, because it was something completely different back then and they are still growing. Yeah.
It was an absolute complete new idea at the time of launch, eh?
Yeah.
Very interesting. Thanks, Ali.
Okay.
Tabile, what business did you come up with? Ali. Tabile, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's me who's going to present.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a construction business. It will supply the construction sector with ready-made aluminum windows and doors. It also going to make reparations and maintenance for those already installed. It won't only based on our customers, but also supply or run maintenance for other customers who already installed from other manufacturers. And it also going to assist with advice to those who want to install aluminum windows and doors, but thinking that it will cost them a lot of money to do that, by just advising them that it is possible to install aluminum windows and doors based on your current structure of your home.
Right. And
Thank
where
you.
does this business, what's the driver here, Ben?
It's experience driven, and
All right. So
it's also
there's expertise, right?
yes.
Okay. Is that all? Are you speaking on behalf of the two of you?
Yes.
Guys, when we look at this way, that's often where entrepreneurs sees this gap. If we say McDonald's, I'm almost finished. Does McDonald's sell good food? They don't. Do they sell nutrition? They don't. Do they sell a culinary experience? They don't. What they do sell is convenience. Because you can go there at 12 o'clock at night in your pajamas with the baby strapped in the car seat at the back, and you can get something to eat. When you start looking at your business, your entrepreneurial venture from that perspective, what need am I addressing? Think of Apple. And I know some of you I always call you Apple snobs, Mac snobs. I'm still an Android, tongue in cheek. But what does Apple sell? Don't you think they sell, apart from the products that work nice and they are seamless and integrated, they sell sophistication, right? Remember when Apple came out with the white ear the thing is, it was almost seen as a status symbol, right? If you went jogging with your hoodie and you had your white Apple earpods in there, it was displaying this superiority, sophistication type of vibe. So sometimes there's that, and there's a need, but the need goes beyond just the concrete thing itself. I think convenience, innovation is also part of your one here, Ali. I'm 1 minute from done. If I ask you this question, looking at this business of yours, if a competitor with double the capital opens up next door tomorrow, why would your business survive or not survive? Think about that. We're not going to discuss it now. We're out of time. Operational scalability. Ali, again, you spoke about the scalability of the storage model. If this business is dependent on the owner's physical time, it's difficult to scale. Or the owner's body must be there to provide the business, right? Or is there a system that can allow this business to scale? A dentist needs to be there to see his patients. He cannot scale beyond where his body can provide that service to customers. Now, a retail shop, whatever, can expand. Something like your idea, Dieter, obviously you might have given this some a lot of thought. How scalable is your idea? How will you scale this business? Or are you the pole keeping this tent up? No. Again, we can discuss it next time. It's interesting. I'd like to hear what you say. What about external factors, guys? This business, how does current economic shifts like interest rates, fuel price, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, tax thresholds impact this niche? If I say, listen, last week we looked at startups, né? And we've looked at why these businesses work. But now, if you can think of one thing that can make this business, that could obsolete this in the next 3 years, what would that be? Is it a tech shift? Is it a regulatory change? Is it a change in consumer values, perhaps? Think about that. Run that scenario. What's the one thing that could make this business obsolete, maybe in a year or 2 or 3? Nah, just consider that and reflect on that. All right. Takeaway for this evening, guys. We looked at why startups failed last week. But entrepreneurship isn't just about starting. It's about constant management of, and I like this word, relevance. Your business has to be relevant. BlackBerry was relevant, so much so that one could not foresee that they would disappear. And look what happened to them. It's a constant management of relevance. Dieter, was that a hand?
No, sir, that was by mistake. Sorry.
All right. Guys, thank you very much. Our hour is gone again. I will see you next week just before the assignment. Work hard, do research, and if you do submit before I see you, don't click on that submit button. Submitting something sloppy, submitting something that's not double checked and triple checked. Don't submit something that you are not proud to submit. Is that a deal, folks? Take care and do enjoy your weekends. I hope you can take a bit of a breather, and we'll speak again soon. Cheers, everyone.